Hey everyone, it's Andy from Adobe here. Thank you so much for taking a bit of time out of your day to run through the latest trends and changes and everything that's happening in the world of social media. And I've corralled all of these trends and changes and the most important things that you need to know over the course of summer so far of this year, so that we can take some of these insights, new features, updates, and some trends and help inform our social strategies to drive growth. So that's the idea for today. And I always caveat these sessions, of which we usually do once a month. And you might notice, if you're a regular viewer of our kind of Get Social sessions, you'll notice that my better half is not with me today. So Jordan is not joining me today because I think she's having more fun at Comic-Con right now. So you've just got me today. Hopefully that's all right. But we'll still be bringing the energy and a whole heap of new things for you to learn about today in the world of social. But when I say a whole heap of new things, I just want to be super clear that this session is never designed for you to look at all of these things and changes and take action on every single one. Really, the whole idea of this session is for you to feel empowered by knowing all of the things that are happening in the world of social and be able to understand how each of those potentially could impact your business or social strategy. So you can selectively choose maybe one, two, maybe three things out of these that you might take away from this session and implement to help you drive growth on social. So don't feel for a moment you need to do it all, because we can't do everything. We can't be everywhere. And honestly, doing a few things well will always beat trying to do too many things not as well. So that's my little caveat before we get into it today. And a couple other things to start with as well. Let's do a kind of quick bit of intro. Let's get the boring bit out of the way. I'm Andy. I'm one of the product managers at Adobe Express. Have a lifelong interest in social, have built companies in the social media space previously. Hence the reason I stay very close to it. And the main product that I work on at Adobe is the content scheduler product that sits within Adobe Express. I'm going to touch on that in a second before we get into everything. But a little nudge as well, because if you want the recording of today and all of the features and updates sent to your inbox every single month, feel free to sign up for Jordan and my free newsletter, where we cover this and everything else. So if you're kind of more of a reader than a listener, and if you need to like dip out today, don't worry, sign up to this. So you'll see the URL at the bottom here, and you'll just get that email in your inbox every single month with all of the trends and changes. Cool. So that's point one. Point two, let's talk about Adobe Express very quickly, because you will notice, or you might have seen, that there is a brand new version of Adobe Express, of which we're building a lot of social media functionality into. Now, I'm not going to do your full demo today. We can do that another day, because today is all about social media changes. But I do want to touch on this, where here in Adobe Express, it empowers anyone to be creative. So you can create, multi-page, so carousel posts, single page Instagram posts, TikTok, Reels, whatever. All of those things you can now create super simply with kind of templates, stock media, and all that kind of thing. So really lowering the bars or the barriers to get creative and start expressing ourselves on social media. The reason I wanted to touch on this is because, in the context, we're going to talk about social media today. So now we've got that social media functionality within Adobe. So here in our home screen, we could click on social media here. We can see the different page sizes that we could create for a bunch of suggested templates that we might want to work for or use rather, and a bunch of quick actions that we might want to work with to help speed up our content creation. And with that, what we can also do, if I go into one of my previous projects that I created earlier, which is just an Insta Square post, if we want to start publishing this to social, we can easily do this just by pressing share on anything we've created in Express. And we have the option to schedule that post to multiple networks. So if we click this, here we can now choose the networks that we want to publish to. So let's say we want this on Facebook and Instagram. So we can now publish to multiple channels, because we're going to talk about some of this data today, because multiple channels and publishing to more than one channel obviously has a significant impact on our reach and helps us drive growth. So we can choose the date and the time to make sure it lands with our audience at the perfect time. And we can put in a caption here. I'm just going to do a little test here. Emoji picker, we can mention others. If we want to tag people on our post, always use tagging kind of judiciously, because we want to make sure anyone we tag does respond, because otherwise it'll impact our reach negatively. So make sure we choose who we tag very wisely, and include any hashtags. Recommendation here on hashtags: don't use more than 3 hashtags in a post. That's information directly from Instagram and Twitter. So you can have up to 30 hashtags here, but yeah, I would very much suggest that you don't. We can also have like schedule a first comment for Instagram, which can be super powerful as well to keep our caption clean. We might want to have like extra links to things in our first comment as well, so we can schedule that too. Even helps us drive immediate engagement on our post. We can preview it, see exactly how it's going to look on Facebook and Insta, and if we're comfortable with that, we can go ahead and schedule that. And now once we've scheduled that post, that we can just carry on working through the rest of the projects that we want to build. And here, going back to the home screen, we've now got this new schedule functionality, and we can see all of the content that we have scheduled. Look at that in a week or a month view, whatever kind of is our preference. And we can drag and drop and move this stuff around too. So a way that we can plan, organize, and schedule our content directly in Adobe Express. So with that, that's the kind of quick intro to Express out the way. Let's go ahead and get straight into the stuff that we really want to learn today. Going to go through 3 core pieces today. We're going to go for some data. So what's the most important information you need to know? Good way to sound smart on social. If you want to regurgitate some of these, feel free to screenshot anything that you find. All the citations and where this data is from is included on the slides. And also we're going to look at some trends. So what's happening in the world of social? What's the trajectory? Where are things going? How can we use those to our advantage as a business? And then finally, we'll go network by network and look at all of these specific updates within each network, so we can start making sure we're utilizing our favorite channels in the most effective way. Cool, let's look at some data. Now, anyone of you that have joined us previously, we do this every single month. Naturally, you would have seen like the continual trajectory of TikTok continues to grow in terms of monthly active users. It's now 1.1 billion monthly active users big, so very big, but still only about a third of the size of Facebook. Such is the size of Facebook. But interestingly, however, because as we know, Instagram released Reels very much to combat the growth of TikTok, and the strategy is starting to pay off. In fact, both on Instagram and Facebook, particularly on Reels, more people are starting to spend more time again, both on Instagram and Facebook. And that's really what the kind of platform war is all about. It's the war for attention. And of course, you know, the important thing for us as like small business owners, marketers, whatever our kind of role is, the important thing for us that are marketing on these channels, the more time that people spend on these platforms, that means there's more availability for them to see and be served our content. So it matters a great deal, these metrics, for our growth as marketers, business owners, etc. So Instagram Reels, Facebook Reels continue to get used more, and in fact, starting to take good strides against TikTok. So that's really encouraging to see. Now, this is really interesting. I quite like this data. You might need to zoom in a little bit on some of it. Let's look at both sides of this. Left-hand side. Facebook still leads in terms of the most used platform. And the interesting thing about this heat map, it breaks it down by different demographics. And one thing just to say about baby boomers, just for a moment as well, because you might think, oh, right, you know, over 50s, maybe, you know, they're not the ideal audience for social. In fact, baby boomers are the fastest growing segment in terms of time spent on social platforms. Whilst all of the other segments are kind of plateauing at the moment, baby boomers are continually turning up and spending more and more time on social, which is really, really interesting. Great. Okay, so if you have a look at some of the other platforms, no real surprises. Facebook leads, WhatsApp next, Instagram, and you'll see like TikTok, Twitter, that kind of thing. LinkedIn's a little bit lower, but probably no massive surprises in terms of the most used platforms. Now, this is possibly one of my most favorite pieces of data, actually, because I spoke about the importance of multi-channel just a moment ago when I was kind of adding both Facebook and Instagram into a post as we were doing on Express. This grid shows the overlap of how many different networks people use. The average user uses about 7 different social channels. That's absolutely huge. So it goes to show that more people are spending more time across more social platforms. So that's really interesting for us to note, because, you know, we might have our favorite platform that we regularly publish on. Let's say Instagram, for example. Now, what's really interesting here, if we look at Instagram, we can start to see the cross section between, if we're targeting our users predominantly on Instagram, and that's where we hang out, 82% of Instagram users are also on Facebook, 52% of them are also on TikTok. So it goes to show that actually, if we want to reach our audience, this gives us a really good guide as to our channel strategy. What other channels should we bring in to our social strategy to maximize the growth and reach of our content? So I'm a big proponent of doing one channel really well. So let's say Instagram is your main one. So you go deep on one channel, which means kind of building your audience, connecting with people, building that community, responding to comments. Because realistically, as most of us, we might all be small business owners. I come from a small business background too. We don't have unlimited resource. So actually focusing our time on building on one channel is really good, but also distributing as well to multiple channels really pays off. So even though you might not be spending all of the time there engaging with every comment, that's okay. Don't worry too much about that. We can still go deep on one platform, but kind of go broad at a surface level to maximize the reach of our content. That's typically been my preference and one of my core growth strategies. And this data really kind of backs up why that's really important, because we need to think multi-channel if we want to reach our audience effectively. So there's some key 3 bits of data for you. So let's now look at some trends. Now, I'd already actually referenced this trend on the right, so I've kind of a bit of a spoiler alert for my own slide. Never mind. On the left-hand side, however, this shifting consumption trends, you'll notice, and this kind of jives with the data that we shared just a few moments ago, more and more people are spending more time consuming video, particularly on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. So there is a bit of a shift in those platforms, which historically have been more image driven, where more users are starting to get into the vibe of watching and consuming more video, with the sound being on as well. So it's a very different thing. And, as much as we saw like last year, where the whole kind of Make Instagram Great Again campaign, and Instagram said, we've kind of pushed Reels too hard. To be honest, I think they were paying lip service. That's my own view. Reels has been such a runaway success for Instagram, and to a lesser extent, but still a little bit to Facebook. It's been such a runaway success in terms of getting more people to spend more time on the platforms. Yeah, I would bet my bottom dollar that you'll see more and more pushing of Reels from Instagram, and that will mean that it becomes increasingly important that if we want to make Instagram work for us to orientate our strategies to kind of short form video orientated content. Whether we like it or whether we loathe it, it's just part of the game, unfortunately. So that seems to be very much the trajectory. And like I said, on the right hand side, here you'll notice this is all users, time spent on platform in social media. You'll notice it's kind of plateauing, but you'll see a 14% increase of baby boomers. So it just goes to show that social media is so powerful for reaching people at scale. Not only is social media used by 60% of the world's population, which is frankly staggering. So that's 4.7 billion people. So 60% of the world's population actively use social media every single month. 60% of the world's population, absolutely crazy. And naturally, we've seen demographic shifts within that, because nearly the whole of the world that has access to the internet pretty much uses social media every single month. And you're starting to see that impact at a macro level, those different demographics. So more and more older audiences are spending more time on social, which means great things for us as marketers, business owners, because it means that we've got a broader base of an audience to reach. This is something else that always, pleases me to see. And I've been tracking this trend for years. How social media compares to search, so like Google search, when it comes to brand discovery. Because we've typically have always expected, and it's typically search has led to this, where if someone's going to research a new product or go and buy something, you go Google it. It's typically been the thing. But increasingly, we saw this shift first with younger demographics, where they would go to social before search to find out products to buy, things to be recommended. And we're starting to see that happen across all demographics now. People turning to social before search to get inspired about new products to buy. And I think that's super important. Well, it's one of the most important things we use as people that are using social media for business purposes. This is great to see, but it's kind of obvious why this is happening. You know, we're in an era where trust is an all-time low. So we don't necessarily believe what we see in the media. We question the media. We question the things that we see online. But actually, you know, in our communities and the people that we follow, the people that we have chosen to follow in our feeds, they have increasing influence over us, because in the days where kind of trust is limited, we look to those that we trust, that have authenticity, that have integrity, that have credibility. We look to those people, and that really helps fuel brand discovery. And increasingly, we're seeing more people on social platforms, you know, use the search functions like you've got in every single social platform. You've got a search function. More people actively using that, and using social platforms like a search engine to say, like, find me the best restaurant in Queens, for example. We're seeing that play out a lot on TikTok at the moment, where more people are using search, which is the reason that TikTok changed their character count that you could have in a caption from, I think it was 130 to 2,200, because actually people are using social more like a search engine. So what that means for us as marketers is making sure we've got good descriptions, good quality descriptions or captions to go with our content. That's going to make it easy for people to find. Simple as that, really. It's kind of like, you know, social meets SEO, basically. And yeah, it's nothing more complex than making sure we've got clear, concise descriptions in our copy as to what our content is related to. Right, I'd be very interested to know, anyone that's watching right now, who has downloaded Threads and what your thoughts are. Because I'm sure if you're interested in social, you won't have missed this, the fact that Threads became the fastest ever consumer app to hit 100 million users, which it did in 5 days. Kind of unsurprising when you're Meta and you have over about 50% of the world's population using your products. You'd expect any new launch is going to be kind of big. So unsurprisingly, it was very big. But the bit that I'm paying close attention to, other than kind of having fun on Threads, because, you know, this is a perfect time just to experiment, to be curious. There is no best practice. There's no rules of the game yet. So it's just fun to kind of experiment and play with it. And I love the fact that it kind of mirrors a lot of your Instagram social graph. So it kind of feels like home straight away. And certainly if you're more of a writer than someone that's or less comfortable in video, because all of the other networks are really pushing towards video, then Threads naturally has probably quite a good fit for you. If you're that writer, you feel more comfortable behind a keyboard than a camera, then it could be really good. Now, there's still a lot to play out for us to kind of say that Threads is going to have a long-term place in the social media ecosystem. Will it replace Twitter? My own personal view is no. I see them as two different platforms. It's kind of positioned as like the alternative to Twitter. And I think that's more of a PR stunt, and it's very well done, to be honest, because it captures what's happening in the moment and the growing dissent around Twitter. But what Threads doesn't do, it doesn't report, it's not about kind of real-time cultural breaking news, etc. So Twitter still is the kind of town square. So I don't see Twitter going anywhere. But the thing that is interesting to see is that engagement, particularly related just to post likes and replies, engagement is much stronger right now on Threads than Twitter. So you can see it across, you know, comparing some of the world's biggest brands. Of course, many of us don't work in these world's biggest brands, but we can take it with a pinch of salt. But it's actually really nice to see how Threads is driving really strong interactions. And you can see as a percentage, take McDonald's at the top, for example, you know, as a percentage, if you get their kind of average likes versus their followers, you'll notice that the engagement is much, much higher. That's very little surprise, because there's a lot more activity, because it's new, it's nascent, it's exciting. There's a lot going on, but that's definitely something to keep an eye on. I think over the next kind of month, 6 weeks, we'll see a lot of this play out, but definitely one to experiment with. And I saw this on Twitter, actually, and I wanted to share this because even though this is not necessarily a trend, Jordan and I, who obviously Jordan is my regular co-host, often talk about this. And this was such a brilliant example. And I wonder if I can log in into Twitter and show you this, and hopefully you can see it. So this guy is someone I follow on Twitter, and his post went viral because he had someone fairly famous comment on it, right? So whenever Elon turns up and comments on your post, it's going to blow up, clearly. But what was really interesting, because that tweet went, the very definition of viral. 4 million impressions, look at the engagement, nearly 100,000. You would think that person is made. You've gone viral, you're done. And we often we put going viral on a pedestal. We see it as the objective. Jordan and I often say, it really isn't. It's about consistent growth. But when you start to look at this, and this gives a perfect example of that, I gained very, very few followers, about 150. And it's really interesting to see, going viral does not lead to worthwhile outcomes unless the piece of content you went viral with is directly related to your usual subject matter. And there's another example of that, of someone else that, went viral and literally gained very few followers. And it's all about relevancy. Relevancy and consistency is a thing that's going to fuel social media success. And I thought it's just a really interesting thing just to bring up as an example and a case study to go yeah, we'd all love to have loads of likes and engagement on our posts. Absolutely, we would love it. But actually, when you look at it like that, if we're just if that's the goal, we're probably potentially misguided. We're going to end up disappointed. Whereas if we think about relevancy for our audience, we think with our customer in mind first, and then we think about consistency and a regularity. When I say consistency, I mean consistency of message and a consistency of publishing. Relevancy, consistency is the goal. Right, cool. So there's your trends, data and themes, etc. Let's dive into some new features then. We'll go network by network. So feel free to kind of tune out and tune into the ones that are most interesting for you. But there's a lot going on across all the networks. Right, we're going to pause on this for a little bit. I'll let you read because there's a lot going on the slide. And I think this is really helpful from Instagram at the moment because they're doing a lot to try and debunk regular myths around social. And unfortunately, there's lots of social media experts in the world that will tell you their views on algorithms. I keep on using these, inverted parentheses because there is no expert on social. Social changes too regularly for anyone to be an expert. So just, for any advice you hear, just continue to be very curious and take it at face value. And the reason I say this is because there's a huge amount of misinformation in the social media industry. Lots of people sell courses based on their own ways of making social media work. Always be curious. That would be my best guide because things change too regularly. In the world of social media, it's the only industry you can go to bed an expert and wake up a total novice. It changes that quickly. So that's an aside to this core thing because Instagram are doing a lot to debunk the myths around their algorithm. And there isn't just an algorithm, there's 4 algorithms. And really what an algorithm is I wish people didn't use the word because all it is a recommendation engine. All it is choosing how it recommends or how it chooses to display what content to whom and to when. When you've got that much content to work with, there's kind of a tricky thing to do to make it relevant. Now, there are 4 ranking algorithms to Instagram. So it's important to know that not everything is ranked the same. Naturally, your feed is more heavily dominated by those that you follow, but increasingly, and this is why people are kind of disappointed with it, increasingly your feed is starting to become more recommended content. It's taking much more of a TikTok orientated model where Instagram is learning about the things that you regularly engage with and serving you more content, which is similar to that, but maybe from other people. Instagram's getting much smarter at understanding what is in the content without it being necessarily written in the caption. So that's where you're going to start to see a lot more content being served. One kind of little thing as well, whenever you're served content in Instagram that you're like, why am I seeing this? There's a little kind of 3 dots next to each post in the bottom right, and you've got a why am I seeing this option. I sometimes press that and it's really useful because Instagram directly says you're seeing this because you do X, Y, and Z. And that can be really useful for us just to continue learning about, what is the thing that's driving reach. Reels is much more about the performance of the reel itself is what's going to drive the growth. So naturally, engagement matters a great deal for Reels. Reels is all about helping people spend more time on the platform. And really our kind of main takeaway from this when we're creating reels, the shorter the better, because rewatches is super important. Getting people to watch to the end and watch it again is a real big signal to Instagram that that content is valuable, because naturally content that's stopping people and keeping people on the platform is what Instagram want to show more of. So that's why your hook becomes really, really important, the thing that you start the content with. Explore is much more viral based content. It's a little bit more of a kind of smorgasbord of different things. And again, it's content that's had high engagement, high watch rates, that kind of thing. And stories is the only thing that is very lightly algorithmic. It's less recommended. It's mostly all about your followers and closer connections. So stories is very different. So really, in summary, Explore and Reels have two very, very similar dynamics, which is all about depth of engagement as to why you'll see it, and how long it's keeping you on the platform. Feed is a kind of mix between stories, right, and stories and kind of Reels and Explore. So it's kind of in the middle ground between like heavily algorithmically weighted and a little bit weighted by your social graph, so those that you follow. And in stories really is more focused on those that you follow. Sorry, I spent a long time on that, but hopefully it makes a degree of sense. Something that is a real good thing to know about is Instagram broadcast channels launch to all. So everyone should have access to this. This allows you to create a channel and it allows you to message everyone in that channel and ensure that everyone gets a notification around whatever message you wanted to share. So it's kind of like being in a WhatsApp group chat, really. So that's really important, and it's a fantastic way to really kind of build a community around a certain subject matter and have consistent engagement. So that's where broadcast channels are super, super powerful. Great way to have like your closer knit community, and a way to communicate with that community without having any of the concerns about the algorithm that we're just talking about, because this operates much more like a kind of newsletter or a WhatsApp group. Basically, if you send a message, everyone's going to get it. Whereas anything that we post to, Instagram feed, stories, reels, whatever, it's a bit of a luck and chance whether people will see it. And that's why I love broadcast channels. But of course, anything that allows us to message people directly requires quite a lot of thought and consideration about how and when we use something like that. Cool. Talking about trending reels and finding content that can help us grow, you can now discover trending Add Yours. If you're not familiar with what Add Yours is, you'll see this as a sticker across all of the main Instagram formats, be it in stories, be it in reels or whatever. And it's a really nice way to encourage participation on your content. So an Add Yours sticker, great for like fashion trends, or, for example, let's just say like, show me your home office setup. Just obviously just thinking about what's in front of me, and you can encourage an Add Your sticker so people can click on that, add their own version, and it's kind of creates like a content pyramid. It's like content on content. So it creates much deeper engagement. And of course, like the more we encourage participation on our content, the more engagement we get. So really good to think about that participation piece. So trending Add Yours is a really nice way for you to potentially interact and add content or add into other trending things. So a great way for you to drive your discovery. So if you find something that's relevant to you, for you to kind of add your contribution into, that can be a great way for you to drive discovery, rather than, actually just a side note, because it's good to think about social in ways like this, rather than us just thinking about, oh, what am I going to post in my feed? Thinking about how you're going to appear in other people's feeds that are really relevant to you. So maybe influencers that you follow, people that have communities in your niche, that kind of thing. That can be a good way to drive growth. So I like that. We can also discover trending audio on Instagram Reels. I'm surprised this wasn't a thing before. It's obviously a thing on TikTok, but now if our content needs a bit of audio alongside it, naturally it makes sense to use some of the trending sounds as well, because even more than hashtags, trending sounds help really drive discovery of our content. So looking at trending audio can help us be more selective about the audio that we're going to put in, and help us kind of get on the back of some kind of content trends, even though, our content might be more focused on our own kind of niche, because like I said earlier, it's about relevancy and consistency. but we can still be relevant and consistent in our content and potentially add in one of the trending sounds to help maximize the reach of our content. This is something that Jordan and I speak about loads, and I absolutely adore. This is live to everyone now as well. Add up to 3 collaborators per post. Again, like I say this all the time, like think beyond your feed. If I had to give one single most important bit of social media advice to anyone, it's like what other people say about you matters far more than anything you say about yourself. So really think carefully about who you might want to work with. So in the same way we spoke about kind of trending add yours content, looking at kind of influencers and communities you can work with, this can be really useful in, you know, collabing with people. Maybe you've done like an Instagram live together and you're kind of reposting that. Adding them as collaborators means that that post, as provided they accept your collaboration request, so we don't want to spam people with this, we want to be genuine collaborators, but should they accept your request, it means that your post goes into their feed too. So essentially that is a fantastic way of maximizing distribution. So super powerful stuff coming out of Instagram: broadcast channels, trending ad yours, trending audio, 3 collaborators per post. There are 4 really powerful things that we can utilize to drive growth straight off the bat. Cool. Talk about driving growth. This does also link a little bit to Instagram, even though I put it under the Facebook banner. Reels ads are coming to Facebook and Instagram. Now, we spend most of our time thinking about like organic content, right? So non-paid for social content. However, sometimes it's really useful to use some of these new advertising formats, because when they're just released, the costs are a little bit lower. And again, you know, for low cost advertising, few things beat Facebook in terms of performance, certainly in my experience. And here we've now got some really useful message tools or useful ad formats. So now we can display ads properly on Reels. So you can see it kind of a little sponsored idea here at Jasper's Market. We can have like app download links, and we've also got send a message on WhatsApp. So if you're a kind of e-commerce store, for example, more a consumer driven brand, you can encourage people to start up an instant message chat on WhatsApp too. So that can be super powerful to drive direct engagement and direct interaction. So definitely want to check out. Okay, now this is a really important one for anyone that's a kind of solopreneur, solo brand, you know, small business owner, but working by themselves. So we might have considered Facebook a bit kind of dead and buried for growing our brand organically. I know that was certainly the narrative a couple of years ago, where Facebook pages weren't performing very well, and it just didn't really work out very well. Tables have turned, very much so. So there's a few things that I need to caveat this with. It looks like Facebook are really starting to push the personal profiles, and in particular, their professional mode. So this is definitely one, if this kind of sounds like it might be relevant to you, I would definitely take this as one of the main takeaways today. If you work on Facebook, you're a solo creator, or even if you don't work on Facebook, if you're a solo creator and you're building your own personal brand, I implore you to change your Facebook personal profile to professional mode for a few reasons. One, there's a whole bunch of new stuff that's now available for creators that have changed their personal Facebook profile to creator mode. So here we've got this inspiration hub, which gives popular hashtags, popular reels that you might want to remix and do something with, just to give you a bit of inspiration. You'll also see a whole new video editing experience, which can be really useful in helping us kind of simplify how we create content. So, you know, if we've filmed a video, we can make our edits so much quicker, but we can also use Adobe Express for that too, if we want to use that video across multiple different platforms. So it can be really helpful. But one thing that I also really like is like your daily checklist. It kind of gives you a bit of a page health, so to speak. So you can like see, is my profile complete? Is all of the things that I need to include in my profile, am I maximizing my growth? And honestly, like I speak about this fairly frequently. We don't spend enough time like looking at like our bios and our profiles and our links and that kind of stuff, like across our different channels. Are they all pointing in the same direction? Are they all saying a consistent message? There's a lot of value just in making sure our bios are correct, and things like this, like checklists, can be really helpful. Now, the other thing I want to mention that isn't on this slide is that the most important thing about this Facebook professional mode is that whenever you publish any reels from your Facebook professional mode enabled personal account, they seem to do incredibly well. Honestly, I've been blown away by the amount of reach that Facebook are giving for reels that have been published from these professional mode personal accounts. I'd implore you to give that a try and let me know. Just on a point of like letting me know, I haven't shared this in the chat yet, but I'm sure you can. Like, you can find me under Andy R. at Andy R. Lambert on any social channel. Feel free to DM me directly, and I'll always respond. So yeah, for anyone that's has a try with this, let me know how you get on. A couple of other creators kind of put me on to the fact that this was a thing, and sure enough, having validated it, it very much is a thing. So if we want to get some free reach and build our awareness, then naturally posting reels from Facebook personal profiles is a really good one. Talking about reels, Facebook are doing a lot of stuff to really push reels. We spoke about right at the beginning about how video is becoming more heavily consumed on both Facebook and Instagram. So here on longer form content, it's promoting it as reels as well. So it's kind of automatically clipping it up for any longer form video, presenting it as reels to encourage more people to watch that. In fact, the Facebook Watch tab, so if you open your Facebook app, you'll notice one of the tabs at the bottom is currently called Watch, which was all going to be about Facebook's original programming, but that's going to all change into it being a place to discover reels straight from the home screen of Facebook. Facebook are leaning in on reels, so I think this is now our opportunity to use that to our advantage. Because we're continually talking about Facebook Reels, why not have another slide on it? We can now add custom thumbnails to Reels. So, yeah, you know, if the first frame of your video, I do face to camera stuff, and usually the first frame, I look horrendous. I look horrendous in most of these frames, to be honest. But either way, we can choose our own thumbnail to make sure like our content is eye-catching, encourage people to watch that. And in Reels as well, anyone getting bored of hearing me say Reels yet? In Facebook Reels, they've launched a For You and following feed. In fact, it defaults to the For You feed. That goes right back to what we were saying at the beginning. We're seeing much more kind of algorithmically suggested content, recommended content, basically. I should ditch using the word algorithmically. Basically, recommended content. Facebook is getting much smarter at using AI to interpret what this content is about and whether you're going to like it. So that whole For You feed, which the Reels area of the product will be defaulting to, is going to be heavily recommended. And that means even more wonderful things for us as small businesses, because it means it's less about our total number of followers that we have. Our main determining factor for social media success just 2-3 years ago was the size of our follower base. Just in the same that going viral is not the goal, as we discussed earlier, building the largest follower base is not the goal either. And don't get me wrong, it's always great to have content that goes viral. It's always great to have more followers, but it shouldn't be the goal, because the kind of playing field has been leveled. And it's been leveled because all of these social networks, when I say all of them, particularly TikTok, Instagram Reels, Facebook Reels, and YouTube Shorts, all of them default to a kind of For You recommended type of model. So that means when more content's being recommended, from people that you don't follow, it means everyone's got a chance to be seen. And that's why we're seeing such amazing growth coming out of Facebook right now. So hopefully that gives you a bit of context. I think there's some really actionable things in there that we can take away that kind of also talks to the overall direction of social. Twitter. I've kept this fairly slim, to be honest, on Twitter, because there's too much chaos happening to try and keep track of what's going on. So I've just kind of gone with 2 slides on Twitter. Just try and keep all the noise to a side and just really focus on the things that you can actually do something with and that are useful. Twitter lists are brilliant. So whether you use Twitter or not, Twitter is always and still the best, personally, well, I say the best. It's my favorite way of finding people and finding communities. I very rarely post to Twitter, but actually finding people, finding tribes and communities on Twitter is really good. These lists are a wonderful place to start as well. So let's say you wanted to find a load of kind of press contacts in technology. There'll be a Twitter list for that. Someone will have compiled it. We've never been able to search them before, and now we can. Fantastic way for you to like find new contacts, people you can work with. And again, this is a fantastic way of like starting those collaborations with people that, you know, maybe share a similar mission and vision as you, people that you can collaborate together for mutual benefit, to help each of you grow. And honestly, it just goes back to the point that Jordan and I talk about all the darn time, which is, you know, collaboration is the utter like central point and key to success on social. So Twitter list can help with that. Right then, sorry for the very wordy slide. I'm just checking time, but we're doing good for time at the moment for our kind of final 15 minutes or so. Twitter have come out and said there are some 4 key ways that you can drive growth on Twitter. Twitter is doing as much as it can to try and encourage people to spend time on the platform, to encourage them to use Twitter, to publish to Twitter, yada, yada. So 4 things, and they're all fairly simple. Number 1, you need to buy Twitter Blue to maximize reach. Twitter Blue is their subscription platform, $8 a month, I think. Oh yeah, it is. Yeah. So that basically gives you a little kind of verified tick. And I'm curious to know whether the other networks will follow this. Only Twitter has been the only one to outright say, if you pay, you're going to get more reach. So if you do want to grow on Twitter, you need to pay. Read into that what you will. I'm not going to debate whether that's good or not right now. It just is what it is. Avoiding outbound links. This applies to every network, so there's no surprise here. LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, is just as far as you can avoid it, do not post links. Just content won't go anywhere. I mean, it's not going to do you any harm necessarily, but it just won't perform. Actually, I say it won't do you any harm. On Twitter, it actually starts to, over time, track you as spam or mark you as spam if you're just continually dropping links. So there is some negative side effect to it. Doesn't matter if you occasionally drop a link, because we all do. We all have to, because there's all like some action we need to take, but just avoid it when you can. Using great visuals. Once again, no massive surprise here, but the point I wanted to call out is that I saw a tweet by Elon Musk, I think it was yesterday or the day before, where he was responding to this precise post, saying that dwell time makes a big difference on Twitter. So what dwell time is just time spent consuming a post. So that's why, you know, great visuals, good captions, like really relevant content that drives participation. Again, it goes back to that point about participation. If people are spending longer on that post, it's then the primary signal, and we see this with Reels, we were talking about it earlier. If people are spending more time on that content, taking a longer time to consume it, then it's a primary signal to those networks that that content is good, so we'll push it further. And avoiding hashtags. I've said this a few times in this talk already, that I keep on seeing this both from Instagram and Twitter, where they're like, hashtags does not impact your reach. I still kind of use maybe 3 or so, but I haven't got this in this deck today, but there's data suggests that actually the more hashtags you use, it and then has a kind of decreasing returns impact on it. So that's from, like, I've just looked at so much data around this because it's so hard to get some real objective stuff as to whether hashtags are good or bad. As far as I'm concerned, I think the main kind of takeaway from this is that hashtags aren't harmful unless you use too many. Use a small amount, and yeah, I just wouldn't sweat it as much as we sometimes concern ourselves too much with hashtags. We don't need to worry too much. It's not going to turn bad content good. It's not going to transform the trajectory of our content. But, you know, 1 or 2 well-chosen ones, yeah, it doesn't hurt. Cool. LinkedIn. Now, this is really useful. So post idea feature comes to personal and company pages. So if you use LinkedIn and you go to your company page or personal page right now, you're going to see a new post idea section generated by AI based on the things you generally talk about and the business that you do. Just a really simple, like, you know, thought starter. In fact, I've used it a couple of times where I was like hitting a creative blank and I've gone, that's quite a good idea. And you can see the little kind of pen symbol, so you can just start directly from that as a kind of post hint. These post hints are going to get bigger. This isn't rolled out to everyone right now. Every other thing I've shared so far is with everyone right now, but I just wanted to kind of mention this because it seems to be rolling out slowly. And unsurprisingly, because LinkedIn is owned by Microsoft, so no surprise that they're kind of one of the first to do like the generative AI copywriting. So here, what we've now got is like post ideas, and those post ideas can now start manifesting into fully formed content directly on LinkedIn. Now, I would use it judiciously because naturally, if you've seen outputs from ChatGPT, they're all going to need some form of like modification. And of course, there's still like the authenticity piece, right? We only want to talk about things that we have a genuine, unique point of view on. And, you know, sometimes things churned out by AI are a little too generic, but either way, if it helps people with the first draft and kind of ignites creativity, I'm here for it. And also one for the more kind of LinkedIn among us, inbox management is coming to company pages. So now we can actually properly manage our DMs in an inbox from our company page, which we couldn't do before. Super important for anyone that manages a company page that wants to kind of drive growth off that. And for those LinkedIn kind of pros among us, or like frequent LinkedIn users, probably better to say, they're changing notifications as well to make it a lot easier, because LinkedIn notifications sometimes have been absolutely wild and you just get so many of them. Whereas the ones you really want are like mentions, the ones where people are talking about you, ones where people are responding to your content and commenting on it. They're the ones that we really want to interact. So it just makes it a bit easier. Alrighty, quick time check because we've got 10 minutes left. Onto TikTok. So there's quite a few new features from TikTok, actually, all of them like really quite useful. So dual camera mode, popularized by BeReal. If anyone's still using BeReal, I'll be fascinated to know, because obviously everyone went wild for that about this time last year, actually it was, and it's kind of now starting to bubble along as the novelty values dipped off. And it's always a thing to watch, just as a side note, like the novelty value of new apps is a very real thing. And that's why we shouldn't go too big on threads right now, because we're still in that kind of hype cycle phase where the novelty value is reigning supreme. We're not quite sure what's going on. It's that kind of, you know, honeymoon period, if you will. So yeah, it works. It pays to experiment, be curious, but potentially just not kind of like suddenly completely pivot our strategy. But anyway, dual camera on TikTok, it means we can have a complete new narrative or a new perspective to our live stream. So if we're doing something, let's say we're like a craft jewelry maker, for example. So it's a great way of you seeing like the product and the program or the process that you're going through, is the word I wanted to use, and also your face at the same time. So creates a real nice kind of interactive element for your audience. So I do like that, and lives are performing quite well on TikTok too. For those live streams as well, auto-created captions. For anyone that regularly uses TikTok, you'll know captions are super useful and really of really high quality, amazing for accessibility. So yeah, got to applaud that, because that's no small feat from a technology perspective to do that. So really, really cool. We can import sounds from other videos too. So if we've got a sound on another video in our device that we really want to use in our TikTok content, then we can do that. Of course, normal copywriting rules apply as well if they're not your own sounds. More AI gen stuff. This is another good one, right? Like we saw with LinkedIn, that it's got those little post ideas to give you a spark of creativity. The same on TikTok, right? TikTok know, like anyone, like creating video is hard. So we do a lot in Adobe Express to help people unlock their creativity by giving like loads of stock media, suggestions, templates, that kind of thing. But like AI script generation on TikTok help you kind of create the right hook, and help you create a good narrative around it. Really useful. Basically, the barriers to video content creation, we all know how important it is. I've spent enough time talking about that today. This kind of just brings the barriers down. And the rest, I think we've only one thing here before we get into a bit of a summary, is that YouTube have now added the ability for you to take your long form content and edit that into a short. So up to 90 seconds, we can now create a highlight from our long form YouTube content. I think as a little kind of note here, I say this fairly regularly when I go through these kind of social updates. I still see people not using YouTube Shorts enough, because YouTube has 2.5 billion monthly active users. Shorts has 150 million monthly views, I think it is. I think it might be even more than that. But anyway, it's a lot. Incredible performance. And of course, it's so heavily driven around that search stuff as well that we were talking about earlier, where so many people come to YouTube to search products and discover new products. So it really picks up on that trend that we saw earlier. So YouTube Shorts is a fantastic way of like repurposing our content. So if we're creating short form video for Instagram, Reels, TikTok, Facebook, or whatever, it's a no-brainer to start like testing out Shorts and seeing how that works for us too. Wow, who's bored of hearing my voice yet? 50 minutes of solid speaking. So thank you so much for those that have made it this far. We've got a little bit of a summary to come, but yeah, and sorry I haven't been able to like interact with the questions in the chat today, because yeah, I'm a man, I can't multitask, I can only do one thing at a time, and presenting this is probably enough of a challenge for me. So sorry I haven't been able to be in the chat answering questions, but wonderful colleague Cody will have hopefully been responding to a few of them. But you can always message me directly on Andy R. Lambert. So you'll find me at Andy R. Lambert on every social channel anyway. So feel free to DM me or directly message any questions. Feel free to sign up to our newsletter as well. Yeah, so hopefully you find that really useful. All of these kind of type of things that we talk about, we just break down a little bit more and write them up. So what's the summary? How do we take something away from that? So hopefully you found that really actionable, because I think certainly over the course of this summer, as we head into a little bit of a quieter period in August, hopefully what you've seen over the last 2 months, there's some really powerful stuff, like so many ways that's going to help us collaborate, help us grow our audience, that kind of thing. So let's read them. Generative AI becoming ubiquitous across social platforms, unlocking creativity. You see that with LinkedIn and TikTok. You're going to see so much more generative AI capability, helping you kind of get the first draft of something, help you kind of see the art of the possible. And we're doing a lot with that, as you know, at Adobe as well. You'll notice some of the kind of Firefly functionality that we've been working on. You'll see some of that initial implementation of Firefly in Adobe Express, starting with text to image, but so much more to come. In the same way, like text to image helps you kind of like visualize the first thing, potentially won't be the end product, but it gives you a starting point. And that's what creativity needs sometimes. It just needs that starting point. It needs that initial spark. So that's why, some of those generative AI things that we're seeing from LinkedIn, TikTok, and others, really, really useful. Reels growth continues. Basically, should just write this as short form growth continues, as all of the platforms start to kind of really unify and lean in a very consistent approach. Short form video, as short as you can be to convey your message, make sure you hook strong to get high watch rates, making sure that in your caption, you've got a clear caption that allows people, if people were searching for something that you do, so if it's the best restaurant in Queens, for example, you're using some of that content in the captions because that's what people are starting to search for. So a few kind of rules around how we should use Reels, but also noting the fact that all of the networks are shifting to this kind of recommended media model to help. That's really going to unlock so much growth for those that don't have loads of followers, because the best content wins, not the people that have just collected or bought followers. The best content wins. Facebook professional mode. Again, I spoke about that enough. I'm sure you probably made a note of that if it was interesting already. But yeah, don't sleep on that, because for any smaller brand, it's just amazing, just incredible. And I don't think that's not going to last forever. So I always kind of try and point towards the places that you're getting underpriced attention. And that's really what organic social is about, is trying to play the game of underpriced attention, because marketing costs money. We have to pay to reach people. So where we look at where we can get the highest bang for buck, even though we're not paying, but hopefully you get the idea. That's where I'm always kind of gravitating towards. And typically, if you want the 4 platforms that are going to drive the biggest organic growth, those core 4 platforms are TikTok, LinkedIn personal profiles, Instagram Reels, and Facebook personal profiles. So those four: TikTok, LinkedIn personal profiles, Instagram Reels, and Facebook personal profiles. They're your core four that's driving the majority of reach. I've already spoken about YouTube. Don't sleep on it, because so much opportunity within that. Make sure we think multi-channel. And multi-channel has never been as easy as it is right now, because multi-channel gives us the opportunity to maximize our distribution, and especially when all of the networks are kind of coalescing around a real consistent format, that kind of short form video. It makes it so easy just to take that content and repurpose it to other platforms and experiment. How does that content perform well on Reels? How does it work, you know, posted to my Facebook professional mode personal profile? How does it work on YouTube Shorts? How does it work on, you know, TikTok Reels, whatever? And that really can help us grow our audience. And again, you know, brand discovery being driven by social, that is a trend that we're watching all the time, and it really just kind of underpins the importance of social media, and the importance that it has as part of a broader business strategy. And it just as a kind of final closing note, you know, see social media not as a channel. It's not just a promotional channel. Social media is a business strategy. Social media is the way that brands are built. It's the way that word of mouth grows. And word of mouth has and always will be the most powerful marketing channel of all. And the reason word of mouth is powerful, because it unlocks that magical thing, trust. Trust is the underlying emotion that governs all buyer behavior. And social media allows us to light a fire under word of mouth at scale. And that's why, you know, I see it as a business strategy. It's a way reputations, and, you know, because what we call a brand really is a reputation of a business. That's all a brand is. And that's why social is super powerful at helping us build our reputation. That's why I always kind of go back to those points about, like, you know, collaborating with people, like, you know, adding collaborators on posts, going to those Twitter lists and finding those lists of kind of those communities and influencers that we can work with. So with that, I'm going to give you all a break from my voice. Thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for joining. You'll be able to watch this on demand anyway, but if you signed up to the newsletter, you'll get that in your inboxes in the next few days. But otherwise, feel free to connect with me. So pleased that we had the opportunity to discuss this today. If you enjoy nerding out with me, let me know, because otherwise I will see you again at the same time next month. Speak soon.